We are talking about girls' mental health, and the material you'll see is for this workshop is really taken from a book called Girls on the Brink. Next, Girls on the Brink by Donna Jackson Nakazawa. And it's helping our daughters thrive in an era of increased anxiety, depression, and social media. It's an interesting book. She has a lot of really interesting, good perspectives and um, good strategies to help our daughters. It's a tough situation now, and adolescent girls have always had kind of a tough time, but it's getting tougher and tougher for them. And that's why she really wanted to address adolescent girls. And I have my own adolescent girl that's grown now, but she still has adolescent issues. So let's move on and get started. Thank you. So what she says is the author says is we as a society are failing pretty miserably in raising our girls. Depression is more prevalent in girls than in boys. 1 in 4 girls report suffering from depression compared to 1 in 10 boys. That's quite a difference. In 2021, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention found that suicide attempts had increased 51% in girls, 4% in boys. And you notice this was 2021. So this is before a lot of the pandemic crisis really came on, and that we had really gone into the continuation of the lockdown and social isolation and a lot of the problems that had happened. So probably most likely that the suicide attempts and depression and anxiety really increased between 2021 and now. Girls' problems, she said, are different. Trauma and stress affects girls' bodies and brains in surprising and unique ways. Girls' bodies and brains are more susceptible when we don't pay attention to their stress and when we don't do anything about it. So that's what she says is we really need to start focusing and paying attention to the fact that our daughters are really in a mental health crisis and we really need to do something about it. Adolescence offers an amazing opportunity for growth. Hormone and brain changes leave us open to new experiences. We can falter or we can move forward and thrive. There's so much going on in the brain during the adolescent years. And by adolescent, I'm really talking about maybe a 15-year period. So anywhere from about 11 years old to about 28, 29 years old. The brain is still kind of trying to figure itself out and decide what it wants to keep and what it wants to get rid of and what it wants to focus on. So there's a long period where the brain is really kind of deciding where it wants to be. And everything that happens to us during those years has a huge impact on how we feel and how the brain experiences. So what do we do? First thing we have to do is identify our girls' toxic stressors. Then we have to reduce the stress and we have to provide adequate support. Next. So what are the toxic stressors? Well, most of them we probably know about. A lot of the stress comes from household stress. Parents with chronic medical or health issues, or maybe even siblings or grandparents who live in the home. Mental illness, alcoholism and drug addiction, divorce, child custody battles, which we didn't mention here, constant criticism, physical and or emotional neglect, witnessing violence between parents, from parents to children, children to parents, siblings to siblings, bullied by siblings, physical or sexual abuse. Household stress is a huge, huge impact. And I want you, while I go through this, especially you moms, is that we're talking about adolescent girls, but in order to really understand adolescent girls and help them, we have to really look at our own toxic stressors that we endured when we were kids and what we're enduring now. Because how we heal from those is how we're able to respond to our girls. There's also environmental stressors, natural disasters. You know, one of the things we had is the Woolsey fire, right? And we still work with kids that are impacted by the Woolsey fire. And it's been, what, 5 years now, I think? Yeah. But we had one girl that came into counseling that was really still having nightmares about the Woolsey fire. So natural disasters can cause a lot of trauma. Something that happened in the Woolsey fires, a lot of people lost their homes. And they were just, it took them years and years to rebuild if they were even able to. COVID. COVID was a huge stressor. Didn't think that when it started, but what happened was that there were a lot of people getting very ill and a lot of people dying. And we had kids whose parents died, kids whose grandparents died, kids who were really sick. We had one little boy we worked with, both parents were hospitalized with COVID. What a frightening, terrifying situation. And the fact that we were still on lockdown, it was really difficult to get any social supports to them. So COVID really was a huge impact on a lot of people. We're still coming out of it. How many businesses went down? People lost their livelihood. People lost jobs. You know, a lot of people became homeless because of everything we lost during COVID. So we're still facing the impact of that. And I just talked to somebody yesterday or today who came down with COVID just a couple of weeks ago. She said she was really sick. It was the first time she'd ever gotten it. So it still goes on. It's not as bad now. We have treatments and such, but it's still there. Toxins in the environment, pollution, infections, all kinds of things. What do we have? A few years back in the San Fernando Valley, we had the gas leaks that happened that impacted a whole community up there, and they all had to be evacuated. And then they said that the effect was going to be there for quite a few years. Social stressors, cliques at school or in the neighborhood, or social media. And we're going to talk about social media later. But these are big stressors that our adolescent girls really feel. Cliques are something that, for some reason, girls tend to focus more on. Not that boys don't do it as well, but there's a lot of cliques within the girls, even in the neighborhood. Community stressors. And we've had a lot of impact the last few years around racism, discrimination. No matter where you go, you're going to face discrimination on any number of levels. A lot of poverty, especially since COVID. Violence, poor schools, although Malibu's pretty good. So Santa Monica for the most part. And then so much going on about school shootings. You know, even if there's not a school shooting in your area, the kids are practicing drills for school shootings. It's a scary time. It's a really scary time. Okay, next.
If I could just add, yeah, really
Yeah.
quick. I would just also add that mental illness alone isn't necessarily the stressor. It's untreated, right? The untreated mental illness is that when folks in the family are not getting the support that they need,
Right.
that can cause a lot of
Right.
stress. And even the lockdown drills can be also very stressful to the kids. So there's a
Absolutely.
lot. Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Yeah. And like I said, I want you to remember that those household stressors, all those stressors impacted you as well. Maybe not as much as an adult, but it still impacted you. And you still, unless you've really been in a lot of therapy and gotten a lot of healing, you're still impacted from the household and the other stressors that you had as a child. So chronic and unpredictable stressors are felt on both an emotional and a physical level. If stressors happen during childhood and adolescence, they lay the foundation for how we respond to stressful experiences throughout our lives. I don't know how many of you are familiar with ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences. This was a study that Kaiser did, 25 years ago, maybe even a little longer ago, where they looked at a group of, was it 500 or 1,000? Maybe 1,000 folks that were involved in an obesity program. So they were primarily upper middle class, educated folks. And what they did, they asked them about the childhood experiences they had. And the people that scored 2 or more, they could tell they had a serious impact on their physical health. They could really see that they had more heart problems. It wasn't just the eating, but it was heart problems, it was blood pressure, it was diabetes, it was any number of things. And they started looking really at how trauma impacts the body. The pandemic worries, the climate change, the political discord, violence wars, kids don't feel safe. And maybe you didn't feel safe when you were a kid because you had a lot going on too. But definitely kids don't feel safe right now. It's a toxic era for girls. One of the things that's happening is that girls are developing earlier and they don't know how to deal with it. Puberty is happening before the girls' brains are ready to move forward developmentally. During this time of adolescence, after puberty, the brain is supposed to remodel and rebuild. It's the biggest change since infancy. It really is moving in a really fast direction. And the little girls that have puberty starting really early are having a hard time because this is just too much for them to deal with. You know, those years between 9 and 13, I think it is, those were the in-between years, the years that used to be about kids kind of finding their friends and spending time with friends, the sleepovers, the going places together, the playing in the park. I know as a kid we used to ride our bikes or ride roller skates around, or we play basketball or baseball or football, or we do tag in the middle of the night out in the dark just to scare ourselves to death. But that was a time when kids just played. Kids were just playing then. And that's what those years were for, is to just play and get a feeling of what friendships were all about. Today, partly because of that early puberty, this is a period that's become a period of competition. It's performance oriented. Who's better? It doesn't let the kids really be kids. It pushes them into adolescence much earlier than they're prepared for it. One of the things that happens in puberty is that emotions escalate. And then the brain evaluates all the experiences that you've had. But it is a very emotional period of time. It's also a period of time when the brain is pushing toward risks. It's pushing toward creativity, new interests, and it's pushing toward peers. So it isn't necessarily the time when kids are young to be doing that. And parents get frustrated, right? Because these emotions escalate. I remember a friend of mine telling me years ago, she had her daughter when she was younger, she was just, oh my gosh, she was perfect. This mom loved her daughter. She was the best thing in the whole world. And then she passed puberty and she just turned into horrible argumentative kid that the mom saw. By now, I think she's probably mellowed out. She's fine. But that was a hard period for mom to go through, to see her little princess, her beautiful little girl who always did what she was asked to do and agreed with mom and all this, turn into this horrible little argumentative thing. So it's a tough time. We aren't ready for kids to do that, and kids aren't ready to do that yet. Next.
Let's hope she became a lawyer.
That'd be good. Social safety. One of the things that happened with females way back when is that females evolved to have a greater sensitivity to perceive and detect threats. They had to ensure the safety of themselves and their children in order to ensure the continuation of the species. So girls, women were very, very important. And for them, it was very important to maintain social emotional bonds and to feel safe in relationships. It wasn't just friendship with one mom, it was a friendship with the community of moms, part of the tribe. But if the rest of the tribe was mad at you, they could just throw you out, abandon you out in the wilderness. It's just like the kids at school when they're mean to you, and they might make sure that you don't have any friends or are left out socially. And that's the same terrifying feeling as the tribe leaving you out in the wilderness. It kind of flashes back to those times when we're abandoned. And that's what it feels like. And it's a scary thing, and it does happen, and it happens frequently. So what happens to the brain when it senses danger? It goes into overdrive to protect a person. The overdrive increases inflammation, which increases anxiety, depression, fatigue, chronic pain, and autoimmune conditions. Because what happens is this little thing in the brain called the amygdala constantly is aware of danger. And if you think there's danger everywhere, You're constantly looking at things like there's danger. So what happens is you can never really relax and calm down. So your body's constantly trying to, it can't really take care of itself. It can't heal. It can't be healthy because it's so protective and on guard in case there's a danger and you get hurt. These kids are always looking for the danger. Experiencing interpersonal stress and social rejection is the strongest predictor for depression. We see this a lot in kids in school because they do form social cliques, and kids can be particularly mean to each other. But when your daughter, one of those girls, is experiencing this social isolation, it's really impactful. It really feels like they are being abandoned in the world. Okay. Toxic stress in childhood doesn't make kids stronger. It reduces well-being for life. It shifts the nervous system at high alert. It creates a perfect storm that changes the female brain and the immune system. That perfect storm is chronic, unending stress, female hormones released at puberty, and constant cultural, sexist messages. And we're going to talk about that more too. One of the things that happens with LGBTQ youth is even greater storms. 75% of our LGBTQ youth experience daily discrimination, daily. And sometimes it's pretty violent. And you've heard all kinds of stories of kids and young adults being beaten up, even killed, because they came out as gay. They've been kicked out of their homes. A lot of the homeless kids we have came out as gay, and their families just wouldn't have them anymore and kicked them out of the house. So they're experiencing even more discrimination. 45% of those kids have considered suicide. It's a real isolating place to be. Okay, next. Now, she talks about antidotes. Help our girls respond better to stress or challenges. Confront our sexist world and make changes. Those are the things that we can do. Go ahead. Parent-child connection. And this is nice, this parent-child connection. A relationship with one loving and attuned parent or caregiver is the single most protective factor for any child. Every kid needs one person who's crazy about them and loves them unconditionally. Don't we all need that? But our kids need that especially. They need to know that they could do practically anything and we would still be there to love them. That we love these kids, that we're crazy about them, that they're the most important things in our lives. It's important that they feel that. Go ahead. As parents, we have to explore and address our own experiences of trauma and stress in order to build our own self-awareness and develop emotional regulation. And a lot of us have experienced trauma throughout childhood and early adulthood, and maybe even now. There's a lot of trauma going on in your lives, at home, in the community, in the environment, and you may really feel that. You may never have had the chance to really address that trauma, or really even accept the fact that you had a lot of trauma growing up. But the essential part in order to be there for our daughters is we really have to look at that trauma, reach out, get some help, get some support, help yourself get through the trauma so that you're okay and your feelings come down and you're not constantly looking for what's going to happen, who's out there for me, who's going to say something, who's going to do something to me. When you can calm down and feel okay, you can be there more for your daughter. So when your daughter turns to you, make it a good experience for her. Let her hear you can be insecure, you can be imperfect, you can be angry, confused, needy, anxious, or all of them and still be loved. And sometimes that's really hard to do as a mom, to tell our daughters those things. That you can be awful and I'm still going to love you. Because we hurt too, right? We have feelings too. So it's tough. But we have to be in a really good place in order to be there for our kids. Empathy and attuned listening will calm down both your daughter's nervous system and your own. Obviously, these two are having a little problem with those nervous systems. Okay. When bad things happen, be prepared to respond in healthy, sympathetic ways. And you know bad things happen. That's life. Life is about good things and bad things. It's just all kinds of stuff happening at the same time. Deep connection emerges when I can't really see it. Let me see. Through facing what's hard. Brene Brown says, if we share our story with someone who responds with empathy and understanding, shame cannot arise. And that's a lot that our girls are feeling, shame. Shameful just to exist, shameful just who they are. They don't feel okay. They feel like they're under threat and it must be their fault. They're feeling tremendous amount of shame. So we need to understand what's going on below the surface, help our daughters hit the brakes on her body and her brain's stress response, and establish a safe connection. Be able to say, this is a hard topic to talk about, even for me as an adult. Thank you for talking to her and apologize if you overreacted or make a mistake. So one of the things that we need to do before we can be in some of these places is to think about all the things that our daughters might come to us and say. How do we feel about those things? So we're not taken off guard and not by surprise when she comes to us and says, Mom, I think I'm gay. Mom, I think I'm a lesbian. Mom, I tried drugs the other day at this party. Mom, I snuck out of the house and went to so-and-so's house. Mom, I had sex for the first time. Mom, I ran away from home the other day. You didn't even know I was gone. Mom, I started drinking. Mom, I started smoking. When your daughter comes to you and says things like that, how are you going to react? It's not the time to think about how you're going to react when she says that to you out of the blue. What's important is that we consider all those things, how we're going to feel about it before we get to those points. Be prepared for those difficult times, those hard topics, those things that we would really not like to have. How are you going to respond to your kids? Are you going to kick them out of the house? Are you going to scream and yell? Or are you going to be there to listen to her? Listen to her. I worked with a woman once whose adolescent daughter, I think she was just finishing middle school, and she decided that she really was a boy, and she became a transgender boy. And I asked her mom, I said, how do you feel about this? She said, inside, I am swirling. This is so hard. She goes, but when I talk with her, I'm supportive. I can be there for her. And that's the crucial piece. We have to be there for our kids. As painful as it is to us to go through some of those things, we have to be through there for our kids. And if we do blow up, like in the slide before, apologize if you overreacted, make a mistake. That's hard sometimes to apologize to our kids, but it really is important. It's important that they understand that we can make mistakes, and maybe they can make mistakes too, but that we all make mistakes and that you really didn't intend to overreact or say horrible things to her. So it's important that we take responsibility for our actions. Okay, one of the things that she talks about too is power up on joy, especially in difficult times. Look for joyful moments throughout the day and create moments. And people don't talk about fun, having fun a lot of times, like this mom and daughter are having, but fun is a hugely important part of life. Huge. If you're not having fun and enjoying things and playing and just having a good time, you're not really getting the joy out of life. Really take a look at what your family can do. Have game nights, have movie nights, and have popcorn. And if you have a popcorn fight at the end of the movie, go for it. It's only popcorn, it'll clean up. Do fun things. I had one mom that had 7 kids, and she was really stressed out and tired because she was doing all the cleaning around the house, and her husband wanted her to sit down with him and watch a movie, and she just felt like she didn't have time. So he was getting depressed. She was getting depressed. She was doing all the work, but she didn't like the way that other people clean. So that's one of the reasons she would do it herself. So we talked a little bit about it. Which is more important to you? Having help and support throughout the house, or having it clean the way you want? So she went home and she talked to her 7 kids. And what they did was on Saturdays, they got together like an army of cleaners and cleaned that whole house. And on Sundays, they took the whole family and went to the park. The kids had such a good time, they didn't even invite friends. It was just the family. They loved it. It was one of the few times that they were able to just get together as a family. It turned out so wonderful that they really were able to experience joy. And she actually sat down with her husband and watched movies, which he appreciated. And she actually kind of liked. Find the joy, find the fun, do it on a weekly basis, make it a regular thing that you do. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be just a card game or Uno or some silly thing like that, but just sit down and have fun. Another thing is don't solve all of her problems for her. She has to learn to do them herself. We can't shield our girls from their problems. We have to, and Peggy talks about this a lot of times at this age, we have to be more of a coach to our kids than the authoritarian figure. We're coaching them along the lines. We help them look at their problems and deal with their problems rather than telling them, well, this is what you should do. Well, did you say this? Well, what did she say? Well, you know, if I were you, I would have said. We have to ask our kids, so what do you think? How did you feel when that happened? What do you think you could have done about it? What do you think she could have done about it? What would have helped? Help her figure it out, because we're teaching them how to mature and develop into an adult. And it's really important that they learn to solve their own problems. Okay, next. Wonder aloud together. This is something we don't really talk about either. Help build resilience to stress. Invite them to look inside for answers, not on the outside, not what did you do, what should you do? How do I feel when I'm in this setting or when I'm with this people? How do I feel? I wonder how they feel. I wonder how they felt when I did this or when I did that. Go to the park and sit around and people watch. I wonder how they started playing together. I wonder what they're talking about. I wonder how they're doing that. Just to wonder together, to be able to start thinking and problem solving on their own. So go slow on development. Keep your child inside the safe space of childhood as long as it's healthy. It's all about the right thing at the right time in the right way. And you know, it was really interesting when I went online, I was looking for pictures and I was looking for teen girls and young preteen girls and all of this. And boy, the pictures were about beautiful girls, pretty girls, girls doing girl things and just looking sweet and wonderful. And it was really tough because that's not what life is about. Life is not about looking pretty. Life is about being able to be a good person and stand up and take care of ourselves. And that's the thing that we really need to talk about and keep our kids kids for a while. They really need to continue to be kids. Okay. Create routines, rituals, and structure. Creating structure helps to set boundaries, helps to set limits in a way that's protective without being overprotective. The setting the structure and the rituals say, this is when we get up. This is what we do when we get up. We brush our face, we brush our teeth, we get dressed, we have breakfast, we put our stuff together, we get ready, and we go to school. When we come home from school, we take a break for a little while and then we do homework, or we do homework and then we take a break. And then we help make dinner, or we make dinner and we eat down for dinner. This is the time when we go to bed. This is the time when we prepare for bed. This is when we take a shower. This is what happens when we go to bed. So the structure sets the rules there. And it's not overprotective because everybody does it in the family. And that means that you have to model it too and follow the same kind of routine. It also says we all have chores in the house. We all take responsibility, but it helps reduce the chaos. It's much easier for kids and all of us to follow through on routines. Much easier. Rituals and structure. What's the structure of our home? What do we say? What do we do? Then you don't have to fight about things. All right, let's talk about social media, because this is a big one. Oh no, go back, Peggy. There. Social media acts like a Twinkie, she says on Taste Buds. So I don't know how long she's been. I don't think we have Twinkies anymore even. But it's the whole idea of, you can't eat just one chip. You just get obsessed. When you eat one, you have to keep eating it and eating it and eating it. And you can't stop, even though you don't really want to keep going. You don't want to eat the whole bag, the whole family pack, the whole party pack of, of chips or whatever you have. You just can't stop it. And that's a real tough thing. So you got to set rules of use of electronics, not at mealtime, not at bedtime. That's a big one. Not at mealtime, not at bedtime, which means you have to take a look at what you're doing. When you're sitting there at the table, do you get out your cell phone? Do you look at the texts or the emails that you're getting, or do you check something on social media? Do you Google something on the internet? What about bedtime? Do you use your phone at bedtime? We got to teach our kids no, no, because social media is can be a horrible, horrible thing. One of the things that she talks about is that kids are getting cell phones and internet access and onto social media when they're still very young, elementary school, let alone preteen. And they're being exposed, one, to situations in the world that they really can't manage, they can't deal with them. And then they get into social media. Mm-mm-mm. Social media, remember how we talked about how we really need a community of support? Social media is the least supportive community. It's all about who's better, who's thinner, who's prettier, who's cooler. And there's vicious attacks on social media, vicious attacks. We gave my daughter a cell phone when she culminated from elementary school. And later she told me, you never should have done that. Never should have done that. That was a horrible thing that you did, because you have no idea what I looked at on that phone. You know, and I was new to cell phones and social media and all this stuff because it's only come up in the last, what, 20 years or so. So I didn't know, but she didn't tell me what all the things were, but she was much too young to be dealing with that. And our kids are. So set the rules on the use of electronics. And younger kids, if you're going to give them phones, really think about it. How are those parental controls? What are you going to allow them to do on there? And why do they need a phone? Why do they need a phone? Keep them away for as long as you can. Go ahead. Okay, we forget that there are other adults around, and this is important. Engage the power of benefactors, mentors, and avatars to help a girl feel she matters. Even kids who haven't experienced trauma need protective and positive experiences. Mentors can help kids feel safe in the world and internalize the feeling of safety. And the mentors can be coaches, right? If they're involved in a sport, they can be involved with coaches. It could be a teacher that they get along with really well. It could be a family friend or a family member that serves as a mentor. Aunts are really good for that, to serve as mentors. It's really helpful. Clubs where you can find mentors for kids for things that they are interested in. One of the things we did was Girl Scouts. And it was a lot of work. I'll tell you, it was a lot of work, but it was really helpful because the older Girl Scouts mentored the younger ones mentored the even younger ones, and the leaders were all there. There was a community that was all kind of together helping each other. And it was really a helpful thing. It was a big thing. Avatars, someone who promotes spiritual growth, inner development, and personal transformation. And if you're religious, if you belong to a church, maybe this is somebody in your church that can be with your child, your daughter. Maybe there are youth groups where there's mentors there, avatars there who can help them. If you're not there, there are other people who can promote spiritual growth, different kinds of growth, the feeling that we are okay inside, that inner development, that transformation of self. It's a trusted adult with whom a girl feels known, seen, and valued for who she is, and someone who she can turn to when she needs somebody. That doesn't take away from you as a parent. It just adds to the support and the support that she has. She feels more a part of the world. She has another adult who she can really trust and listens to her. And sometimes they need to talk about us. I am so mad at my mom today. She said XYZ. And your avatar, your mentor, can just listen. And that's part of what they do. They don't judge. Hopefully, you need to find a mentor that doesn't judge. Go ahead. Help her find a sense of something bigger. And again, if you are religious and it's part of a church, expose her to that, not just to the services, but to the groups, the community, but the natural world. Take her out. We're near the beach over there, right? The beach. It's a beautiful natural world. How huge is the beach and the sky and the water coming in? It's a glorious place. Spend time outdoors, camping, boating, hiking. There's so many hiking trails, but just to go out and feel that there's a bigger world out there than just us and our small little community. We have to have a sense of something bigger in our life. Grow it out so that we're not involved in that just little encased in that little bubble that's nasty and bad. So whatever you can help her do, and you can do this as well, find a sense of something bigger. Go out there and sit on the beach and just experience the ocean. Yoga is wonderful, anything. Take the pressure off of your parent-child relationship and get some professional help. And this is what we do at the Wellness Center, right? We do counseling. We do counseling for the kids and counseling for adults as well. Psychotherapy improves immune and mental health. It's somebody to talk to. It's somebody that listens to you. It's somebody that cares. Doesn't mean you're crazy. It has nothing to do with being crazy. It has to do with needing some help and support. And we all need help and support at some time in our lives. And for our kids, when we see kids in counseling, when we say goodbye to them finally, they say, it's been so wonderful to have somebody that was just able to be there with me and listen to me. That's the thing that they get out of it. Maybe they didn't really change in any way, but they feel better because they felt valued. And they felt that somebody took that 1 hour time to just be there and listen to them and care about them. And that's a hugely important thing. Sometimes we're really busy. We don't have as much time and energy as we'd like to give our kids. We don't always know when our daughters are depressed. They're pretty good at hiding it from us. They don't like to bother us. They don't want to hurt us by saying they're depressed. They don't want to be a burden on us. And they don't want us to get mad at them for being depressed, because we do sometimes. Half of parents are unaware of when their child is having suicidal thoughts. And this is the scary thing, because kids and adults don't always tell you when they just don't want to be around anymore. You don't know. You hear those stories all the time. The 9-year-old that took their own life, parents didn't have a clue. And it didn't mean that they didn't have a close relationship, but for whatever reason, these kids don't want to talk about it. We don't even know how depressed they are, how full of anxiety they are. And that's one thing that a counselor, a therapist can do, is be there for them when they are feeling those ways. We can also encourage meditation, mindfulness, yoga, breath work, exercise, singing and dancing is a hugely important thing. But I really want to encourage you to consider therapy, both for your kids, your daughters, when they're having a hard time, and for you. If you still have things that you need to heal from now and from earlier on, get it. We're there to listen to you. We're there to care about you no matter what. It's not a bad thing. And then think about, is my daughter ready to stand on her own? We have to make sure that she has support, experience, skills, and qualities that will make her feel safe in the world and feel that she belongs and matters. And feeling safe in the world, sometimes a hard thing. Okay. Encourage her sense of mastery. And this is one too, that support her in finding her purpose and passion. When you have those two things, that purpose and passion, it increases your ability to figure out who you are, what you're good at, and what you love. But, and this is the hard part, is remember it's your daughter's journey, not yours. And this is tricky because a lot of times we have these goals for our daughters. We want them to be the doctor. We want them to be the professional. We want them to go into business. We want them to go to college and do these things and that thing and to be wonderful. And we have this path directed that what they're going to do. And they may not be interested in that at all. So we really have to help encourage our kids to find what their passion is. If your kid knows what their passion is and their purpose is, it keeps them focused on moving forward to do what they want to do. So maybe they want to be a doctor, maybe they want to be a dancer, maybe they want to be a mechanic. There's a lot of women mechanics out there now, and race car drivers. There are girls that work with animals in any number of situations. Maybe it's a veterinarian, maybe it's at one of the shelters, maybe they want to do rescue of animals. Maybe they want to do animal shows, be one of the ones that carries the snakes and all the reptiles into the schools to show the kids. Maybe they want to be a Greta Thunberg and really become really active in pressing for social change and environmental change and on national stage. Maybe they want to be a teacher. Maybe they want to be a professor, or maybe they want to be a singer or a musician, an actor, an actress. Those things that, are pretty risky and probably aren't going to make any money. There's only a few people that are famous, but maybe your daughter has this passion to do these things. How can she explore them? How can she find out about them to see if it's something she really wants to do? I had this feeling that I wanted to be an oceanographer. And I went to community college my first few years, and I took an oceanography class. And I worked like crazy to get a good grade in that class. I just studied all the time, and I got a C. And I thought, if I'm going to get a C out of oceanography 1, maybe it's not a good idea. Maybe I'm not geared toward the sciences and the ocean study. So I had to move into a different area, and I found another passion. And then that day I didn't like that, so I moved into another passion. But that's what your girls need to do. They need to explore. Some of them will go into sports. Some of them will go, maybe they want to be a writer. Maybe there are clubs at school that they can belong part of and really explore what's there. Maybe they want to do coding. Maybe they want to do robotic work. Who knows? But they have to find their passion. This is their journey and their life, and we can't live it for them. Whatever they experience is theirs to experience. She's got to find her own journey. Okay. Help her develop a voice, and this is tough sometimes too, of resistance. Encourage her to unlearn gender roles and move away from self-blame. Help them to disagree, especially with dad, especially with men. Let her walk out of a discussion. Help her set her own boundaries, that it's okay to disagree with people. It's okay to disagree with boys and men. And she doesn't need to take responsibility for anything. A girl doesn't have to be pretty or thin or subservient to the guys. She doesn't have to be feminine. She can be who she chooses to be. And this is really important because a lot of people who are coming out now to report on people who they were sexually attacked by, they come out 20 years later to talk about it. And a lot of them said they thought it was their fault. They thought they were to blame. And the boys told them they were to blame. Well, you shouldn't have dressed like that. You were teasing me. You were doing all these things. So I had a right to act on it. Our daughters have to be able to say, no, this is who I am. I don't care who you think I am, but this is who I am. And I can say no, and I can stand up to you. And I don't have to be what you consider a girl. And there's a lot of this stuff. One of the things I forgot to mention is that when preteen girls, those that develop early, those that go through puberty early, what's the first thing you see on these little girls? Breasts. And what do breasts signify? It's a sexual object. The girls become sexual objects and they're treated as such. You may not hear people say things, but that's how they're viewed because breasts are such a big, important thing in our society. They're on everything about women, and sexualized women are the breasts. And here are these little girls 10, 11 years old and they're sprouting breasts and they're viewed as a sexual being, which means they have to consider themselves, what is this sexual being? I have to be sexual? And they really, really have to face these questions as a very young girl. A girl doesn't have to be pretty, thin, or subservient to the boys. She doesn't have to feel that she's not worthy as the boys. We really want her to grow up and be strong and have the ability to say, no, this is who I am. I can be who I want to be. That means we need to be role models ourselves. We need to help our girls believe in their voice and their abilities. And maybe you as a woman, maybe you need to believe in your voice and your abilities too. Because a lot of women grew up with all of this, being sexualized and being told that you're not as important as the men or the boyfriends. Believe in your voice and your abilities. And we can do it together. You and your daughter, explore who you are. Be brave, be strong. Okay. One thing that's really helpful is to have her write it down, because what happens when you have a lot of anxiety, and you probably know this as women, because we do it all the time, rumination. Oh my gosh, what did I see? What did I do? I probably was my fault and I shouldn't have done that. And I wonder why I did that. And I went, and they're going to hate me and they're going to not feel good about me. And they worry and worry and worry and worry and worry and worry and worry. And it goes on and on and on and on and on. But when we write things down, we can look at it in a more objective way and kind of work it out. Maybe I could have done this or that, or do I need to feel that way? I don't. So narrative writing, writing down like journaling, has been shown to reduce depression, anxiety, and PTSD. It helps to calm and reset the brain. And that's a good thing for all of you women, not just our daughters, but very important for our daughters to learn. Write it down, journal. But one really important thing, never, ever read somebody's journal, personal journal. Unless they ask you to read something or unless they read it to you, that is private. Do not ever interfere in that. And sometimes as parents, we feel like we have the right to look at anything. We don't. That's private. So really encourage them to write it down and look at it, and kind of helps to decide, figure out who they are. And then it's interesting for them later on to go back and look at things that they wrote before and how much they've grown. It's very private and personal. Okay. So in summary, let's help our daughters learn to flourish despite the background noise of sexism and other adversities they face. Let's ensure that they have the tools to adapt and self-manage in healthy ways, even in the face of being bombarded by social and emotional challenges, and to flourish without being impeded by the culture in which they're coming of age. So if you got anything out of this today, I hope that you will go home and look at what you need for yourself to be the best, to feel the best internal sense of self that you can. Talk to your daughters, be there with them, help them on this journey that they're on. It's a tough world out there. We know that. And they're going to have to do it on their own. We can't do it with them. I told my daughter when she was getting a little bit troublesome, I said, this is your life. It's not mine. If you wind up in jail, I'll come visit you, but I'm not doing your time. You're the one that has to do it. You're the one that has to pay the consequences for the mistakes that you make. So think about it ahead of time. But also, let's give them credit for the good decisions they make, the values that we hold, the things that we do together. But this is their journey, and they have to do it the way they do it. And sometimes it won't be pretty. We just have to hope that we've given them enough love and attention and guidance and support that they're going to be okay. Eventually, they're going to be okay. Be there for them. Remember, we are the most important thing in their lives, that connection that we have. We have to have that connection with our daughters to really help them feel heard, understood, accepted for whoever they are, as weird as that might be, and loved. So love yourselves, love your daughters, and go have fun this weekend. Go have fun. Do something fun. Have a food fight. Go to the park. Go to amusement thing. Go do whatever, but just have a good time, all of you together. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Appreciate it. And good luck to all of you.